If you weren't, then please go ahead and exit quietly and we will get going. This is a little bit of a long session, but we're going to keep it moving pretty fast. We've got some very interesting people up here, and I will say I was asked to do this, and I think the words ringleader came up a few times. Priscilla, are you going to be able to tame what's going on this screen? So now I understand why I was asked. So we're going to talk a little bit and introduce everybody as we're going in the subject that we have. But this is going to be a conversation about that invisible thread that links CX to EX. And what does this really mean? Because sometimes these things are happening in silos and we're not getting a business case for what we're doing and vice versa. And we've had a couple of other sessions that have tapped into one or the other, but we're going to use these smart guys to help us thread the conversation together. Because ultimately, making those interesting connections that seem not obvious to everybody else sometimes are a world of difference to whether or not the business succeeds. So I've got a few roles that everybody's going to play. I mean, you can play the part of yourself in general here, but Sean next to me here, he is going to be the role today of the methodology architect. So he has 25 years of experience in transforming organizations. And we're going to talk about what he co-created, the market research, the market responsiveness index. And this is going to be a key topic we're going to talk about here and there. But he's seen what actually works in businesses in terms of CX and EX and how to make that connection, and also what does not work. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Johannes is in the middle here. And he is going to play the role today of the implementation champion. So he leads, you got to work with me.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Okay. That's going to be his role today because he's actively rolling out these concepts and this methodology, this framework, over 4,000 employees. You also have seen what has worked and what has not worked. And so we're going to tap into that. So it's kind of an idea of, we're going to talk about a little bit of some elegant theory, and then you're going to tell us about how messy it gets.
Exactly. I will tell you how it's not going to work, as you think.
Okay. That's fair. That's totally fair.
It's going to be fun.
And then Viv, guess what? He's going to play the role today of the unconventional catalyst. So, and if you follow him on LinkedIn, then I really don't have to tell you anything else. But he treats employee engagement like an extreme sport, in my opinion. And more importantly, to me, you model leadership in a way that is, I fucking hate the word authentic sometimes. I really do. But what's interesting is that we're going to talk, and we're going to come back to this at the very end. Sometimes people see a character like yourself and see this kind of leadership that is very open, and then they start trying to copy it. And it becomes very weird and very performative. So we're going to talk about that at the very end to wrap it up. But in the middle of it, he's really going to, he's like that glue in the middle. Here's the framework that's using Question Pro to get these answers. And then Johannes is actually doing it. So we're going to have an interesting back and forth. And I'll try and, keep them from brawling. How about that? Can we do that? I'm not going to guarantee a whole lot. Okay, we're going to kick off with something a little bit controversial to get our conversation going up here. So most organizations focus on employee engagement and employee happiness and culture, assuming that happy employees make then happy customers. And we've heard some things to this point today in different places. But we're going to kick it off with you, Sean, and tell us why there is a counterintuitive truth and why that is not really working for most places.
Okay. Should we all speak in our common languages? German, Indian, Australian,
Spanish.
And Spanish.
Yeah.
So we could turn on the dialect. So
Ooh.
hi everyone. My name's Sean. I'm a long way from home.
Yeah.
So I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm one of the directors of Market Culture. We just recently published our latest book, The Human Culture Imperative. You've seen it on the banner outside, and as a gift to you all, you can download a digital book from us over the next couple of days and have a good read. The book that we've written is all about the how to make a culture tangible and actionable in your business. And what you just talked about a minute ago, we're flipping a lot of things on its head. For the last 30, 40 years I've been in business, leaders continue to do the same thing day in, and day out, and get the same results. Do you agree? Right? They go down the same pathway. Right? They don't change what they're doing. A lot of the things inside our book flip it on its head, and we get people to think. So we use the terminology that happy customers equal happy employees. Have you heard that one before? Right? So I'm going to give you a quick example, and it's a very short story, and I was saying it to Priscilla before. I was in sales, and I worked for Konica Minolta. Who knows the big printing company, Konica Minolta? So I was one of the biggest production print sales guys, and we could not get our billing right to save our souls to our customers. Every single month they were wrong, right? We send the bill out, customer refused to pay. It's not right. I eventually came back with a bunch of invoices to the customer, and this customer was irate. He said he was never going to buy another machine off me in my life. So can you imagine how I felt as a sales guy being told that? Right, there goes my money, and I was an agent, commission only, back in the days. And I was so irate, I walked into Konica Minolta, and what do you think I did as a sales guy? I blew the roof off.
Bitched at someone, I'm going to guess.
I blew the roof off, right? I blew the roof off accounts. I blew the roof off everyone. And I said, why can't you get it right? Why haven't you responded to him? Why haven't you got back to the customer? And it proved that an unhappy customer created an unhappy employee that created other unhappy employees. Do you see the picture? That customer, we fixed his billing, and for the next 6 months, we got it right. He became one of my biggest customers in the future. And I came back to the business, and I walked into the business, and I said to everyone, he loves us. And he's going to buy another machine because we fixed his problems, and everyone was happy. So happy customer equals happy employees. Unhappy customer, unhappy employees. We got to think differently in our businesses today than what we did 10, 20, and 30 years ago. There's not wrong saying happy employees equal happy customers, but think differently so you can create change within your organizations.
Okay, so Johannes, you heard that message, and
Yep.
you've got 4,000 people. You're trying to move forward towards profitability. What sat right with you about that, and what got you thinking, and what got you interested in taking that a step further with your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is also, this conference about customer experience, employee experience is for me also new territory. We are in pipeline integrity. There aren't many businesses out there or industries out there that are more traditional and old-fashioned B2B market than customer service. We actually need to do something to sell our services. It's a kind of new concept for a few years. And now our company, it's 40 years old. We are a market leader in pipeline integrity globally and in the US. So we did something right, but increasing competition, expectations are different. We know from private lives, phone, how easy it is to order something from Amazon. We get a reply, notification, we can track our packages. When you deal in your business and you send an email with a request and it takes 3 or 4 days until you get an email back, you start to think, why? Why don't I get direct feedback in the second? So the perception has changed, the expectation have changed, and so companies need to change as well. And that's what we started then earlier this year, the whole topic around customer centricity. So how do we create a certain mindset in the company? It's not only about, we want to serve customer better, what everybody is saying, but what does it actually mean? And does everybody in the organization understands their role in the value chain? And we clearly see, and I saw, this is definitely not the case. What we think is totally acceptable might be catastrophic for the customer. And so I did a little research. I came across the book that you, it's now the newer version, the 2013 published, The Customer Culture Imperative. I read it, and it absolutely made sense to me from the very beginning. I could resonate with this, and this is how we got in contact. I got in contact with Sean, and the idea of a happy customer makes a happy employee. I think it's very true. So if we make it customer, if we put the customer in front of what we actually do, and if we listen to them and actually develop services that helps them. We had services developed 10 years ago that no one wanted. Our technicians thought this is the greatest stuff ever. We went out there and the operators said, I don't want this. So it's a little bit where I thought this is a great tool in the end to change and drive a certain mindset. And yeah, you said more than 4,000 employees. So it's a huge undertaking, but it's a very, very easy to apply and simple concept, easy to analyze. This is what I like.
Okay, we're going to come back, though. You just said it was easy, so I'm going to hold you to that because I think it gets messy. I'm going to ask you a few other questions.
Ooh.
So, Viv, I want to push this over to you. So this is, now we have a setup here, okay? We have a framework. We have a methodology. We're going to measure some stuff, and we're going to decide that we're going to be a little counterintuitive, and we're going to ask a little bit deeper questions. And now we have a mechanism to do that, and we have some history behind it. You know, a lot of years of experience of doing it. Johannes is like, okay, let's implement this. Okay. This is where we get some dramatic music, dun, 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 you know, enter technology. All right. So Viv, can you give us some idea of how you see technology coming into this? Because I think it's very clear that we can all agree that you do not feel that you are running a tech company so much as a people company. And I would say that you're taking this even a step further to say there's happy employees, there's happy customers, and there's happy prospects. We have all of those three here. That is very different. So this is kind of like up another notch, because you're not making X Day about, first of all, about sales. Secondly, about Question Pro itself. And then thirdly, you're not making it just about customers. So really having really the best and brightest in room. So enter tech into this discussion that they're having. Help us understand how you're seeing that.
Yeah. So the one thing that I will say is, like, we talk a lot about happy employees, really, right? I think it's, at least from my perspective, it's strong cultures. That's the way I think about it. It's strong cultures, and strong cultures are people marching in the same direction, right or wrong, doesn't matter, you know, because we march in the same direction. I always give the analogy about rowing the boat, right? So if you have three people rowing the boat in one direction, two guys rowing the boat in the wrong direction, or even orthogonally, then the boat doesn't go anywhere. So internally, what I've told everybody is, like, look, let's all go to the wrong spot fast. It's okay. And right or wrong, honestly, none of us really know. You know, we just, when we go there, then we'll figure it out. It's wrong, and then we just take a right turn, and then we can go fast to the other spot, really, right? So to me, it's that's why, you know, everything I do is like, we want to be consistent and strong in our kind of where we want to go, how we want to go, and what we want to do, right? To me, it's not about, and honestly, I don't care that much about happiness. My employees will tell you that. Literally. So, but I do care where everybody is marching towards. And that's why and you alluded to it, that's the reason I'm very public about what I believe in, because I want them to go in the same direction. Simple, right? That's kind of like, my philosophy is like, look, if you know where I want to go, then let's all go there together, even if you think it's wrong, right? I'm a huge believer in, like, you know, obviously, you know, Jeff Bezos came up with this disagree and commit model, right? So for the guys who don't know it, Amazon has this, 6-point thing. And the one thing that resonates with me massively is disagree and commit. Not just agree and sabotage, which is the opposite of disagree and commit, which happens all the time, right? And so to me, like, disagree and commit gets velocity. And us being a tech company, velocity is important. Maybe not even tech company, non-tech companies, velocity is important, really, right? And tech enables all of this to some extent. So that's why, this first time Sean and I talked about, a year ago at this point, look, everybody talks about EX meets CX. We've talked about it ad nauseum, all right? And I honestly could not figure out how to actually do anything about it. What do I do? EX meets CX, great. But what do I do? But if you start saying that we are measuring customer centricity, I'm not measuring happiness, okay? I'm measuring customer centricity. If we start measuring customer centricity, then we have alignment. Simple, right? So we want to be customer centric. Are we measuring customer centricity with our employees, right? So that's the way. That's why, kind of, when I was in Sydney, I met up with them and said, like, we got to do this together. Simple. That was the bottom
Okay,
line.
so let's take it right from that thread of measuring something that feels very difficult to measure, making something tangible that feels very intangible. So tell us a little bit more about the framework, the MRI, and what it is really intended to do. What are you measuring? How do you make something that feels as elusive as company culture that is surrounded around like this obsession with the customer? How do you start measuring that?
Okay, it's a good question because I ask a lot of leaders, how do you see culture as a word? And many of them don't define it. They don't know how to put their hands on it. Many will say it's fluffy, right? Right? They'll say, it's a nice to have, but I don't really know how to go about initiating it. So over a number of years, a group of professors got together to study what exhibited from highly customer-centric companies. And they found it was behaviors. It wasn't the product. It wasn't anything else. It was a way the employees and leadership behaved. And then they said, okay, if we can know its behaviors, how can we define it? Because if we can't define it, how do I behave? Well, how do you behave? Unbelievable. How's your team behave? The best in the world. You've heard all that before as well? No one ever says they behave badly, right? So how are they going to change unless there's a risk or there's something associated to bad, because that makes us move. So over the time, we were able to refine it to 8 key disciplines, behavioral disciplines. Do we understand the customer today across the business? Now put up your hand and be honest. In your organization, and I was listening to the lady from Canon, fantastic this morning, and you're talking about making products with people in engineering that weren't even talking to customers, right? I fathomed to understand how that works, and now you've got them talking to customers, and what happened? Products are better, products work, but still you've made a change in a company many companies don't make. So do we understand the customer? Do the accounts department, the finance department, other people understand the customer? In a lot of companies, the answer is no. Right, do we understand tomorrow's customer? Are we focusing on tomorrow's customer, the ones you don't even know yet? Right? Salesforce, one of the most phenomenal companies that focuses on the future. Would you agree? Right? Totally. Always on the future. I'm not worrying about the present. Where are we going? What's the next big thing? What are we doing? And the success of Salesforce is phenomenal. Right? So competitors, are we focusing on who our competitors are today and the competitors in the future? 2 extra disciplines. Big one, peripheral vision. Who was ready for COVID? Right? Come on.
Wait, this is the part where I admit that I actually purchased. This is where I need the dramatic music. Thank you, Edgardo. I purchased wait for it, travel and tourism agency in October of 2019.
That's such great
so
timing.
I obviously did not see it coming.
No, but here's a bigger question. What happens if something happens again? And it's going to happen again. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, but it's going to happen again. Are you ready for it to happen again? Do you have a team that's positioned in your organization that can react in a moment's notice? Are you geared for it? Do you know what your contingency plans are? The answer is no. How are we going to look after our customers if the lights go out? Yeah. Right? Think about it. And then you've got 3 internal disciplines. Empowerment. Are our employees empowered around customers? Can they deliver satisfaction? Do they feel like, and empowerment's a big word, because to say you're empowered is one thing, to act on empowerment's another thing. And people say, but I give my staff the latitude for it, but they're scared. They're scared of retribution. They're scared of being looked and frowned upon, but we're not listening to them. We're telling them. Collaboration. How many companies don't cross-functionally collaborate? Right? Share information across about customers, and then strategic alignment. One of the things I really like about Question Pro, and we've used our assessment tool with Question Pro when we first started, when we did the big test, 400 employees, is that in many of the areas Vivek and I discussed, he was nearly spot on with what the results would be. But that's a leader that's in touch with his people. But when most leaders get our results, they're not. And, I'll tell an example of a big insurance company in South America where the president got on the Zoom call with me and shredded me, right? Because the results weren't very high. They were very low. Now, an insurance company having a high customer centricity result, seriously, but then he's now become a friend because he realized they could improve. And it's not about a result. It's about what we go and do with it. So they're the 8 disciplines that we measure, and we measure from the employee's perspective, but we're looking, if everyone can turn and look outside that window right now, what are we looking at? We're looking at what's outside this building. They're our customers. We're not looking inside like employee engagement. We're looking outside. So we're having this market-orientated view of how the business reacts. And that's the market responsiveness index. And it gives you a score, and it gives you open-ended comments where the score, 99.9%, agree, Vivek, aligns with the result. The comments reflect the result. When you read a low score, the comments are typically harsh comments. Be ready for a reality check, leaders, because it's going to come fast and it's going to whack you in the face because it's going to tell you what you didn't want to hear. But what a beautiful thing, because you can now act.
Well, you mentioned, let's rewind just a minute. They, who saw COVID coming, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition kind of thing. But in that, it's also everybody's in this moment where change, frankly, like it's what's for breakfast anymore. It's like, we're going to get up. This is what we're doing. This is what we're up for today. Right. So I'd love to hear from all 3 of you about that in terms of, okay, let's say we take this methodology. Let's say we want to take this, this questionnaire. I find this funny, Viv, that you knew where this was going. Like you already were in touch and you knew what the results were going to be, from this MRI.
Because I know my employees hate me.
Very consistent, very consistent.
We don't have a hate meter in the assessment. It
But
doesn't exist.
so many people are not wanting to do change. So let me just start with you, Johannes. Let me, as you thought about, I'm gonna be counterintuitive. I'm gonna go a different route. I'm gonna start measuring. I'm gonna try and make that connection between CX and EX. What resistance did you hit? How did it start getting messy at the beginning?
Yeah.
Do you need some dramatic music?
Build it up a little bit. The topic around customer centricity and the initiative, I think they started it over a year ago. I think even 1.5 years. And some people were working on something, but nothing came out of it. And then
Anybody shocked by that? We started a project and didn't finish it?
yeah, as one of, we are very good as a company to start initiatives, and then after 6 months they are gone and no one hears about it anymore. So we have so many initiatives ongoing. As I was asked to take this over, this is exactly what I didn't want to have. I didn't want to have another initiative everybody talks about in 3 months and then afterwards it's gone. And I think this MRI actually helped me quite a bit to convey a strong message, because I went back, I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I read the book. I came up with a framework for us that might work and combine it with KPIs that we already measure, assuming that when we have a certain culture within the company, this will automatically drive certain KPIs that we already track on the customer side. So the customers will tell us at the end if they see any change on our behaviors. And surprisingly, then the resistance wasn't there as much. So it was more like, oh yeah, finally we have something tangible. Finally we have something that we can actually implement easily, where we get results that are easy to analyze and easy to use. So that made it, from a conversation, relatively easy, which is surprising. As I was introduced on what was done before on this topic, it was all some theoretical stuff, theory books about all kinds of what customer centricity is, but there was nothing that you could really implement in the organization, because at the end of the day, it's all nice and fine, but so what? So how do we use this? How do we gain something out of it? And when it comes to culture, the measurement point is something which is typically not easy to do. The MRI makes it very easy. And you can, well, you do it once, you have a baseline. You act on those, let's say, weaknesses that you identify, and then you do the same survey a year or 2 years ago and you measure again. And then you see, has something changed? And I like especially the empowerment category. We did a pilot with managers, a free pilot, just 10 people. And the empowerment got a pretty high value out of it. And I thought, yeah, that's funny that you managers think that you empower all these people so great, but I'm very curious to see how all the employees actually feel about this. So there are certain things where we then consciously make a decision. We will have a leadership group that does it, and we will benchmark this against the employees. So we have certain ways to slice the results down to certain areas. At the end of the day, it's about where do we stand? What do we actually think are we doing right? And when you do the survey, when you go through it, the questions that are asked, they make you think, we might do a little bit of this already, but certainly not to the full extent what we could potentially do. If all of our back offices, they don't know other customers, I can already tell. They don't even, at competition, they have no idea. So there is a disconnect. And it's a German company. It was privately owned for the past 40 years. Germans love their engineering skills, so we like to engineer crazy fancy stuff and the newest and greatest sensors here and there. And this is exactly what we did. We developed stuff and then we went to the market and sold it. And then, of course, there is then something, the service, as I mentioned, 10 years ago, it was the latest and the greatest. And we went out there and we were looked at like, what is this? Go away. We don't even want this. Total fail. So the connection there to the customers wasn't actually there. It was coming from the technology perspective. Okay, we have new machines that can do great stuff. We can have higher resolutions on the sensors. We can do our tools that we use. We can make them a little fancier. But was this actually addressing a need that the customer industry had? Not so much.
Right.
So
how do you walk that fine line, Viv, with like constantly finding out what customers and potential customers want, and how do you backtrack and make that? How do you start with that customer desire and backtrack?
By meeting them. Pretty simple. As much as
when it is that simple, it is that simple. So you meet them. Yeah. You're a naturally inquisitive guy.
And even with employees, right? I mean, we do employee surveys too, but not that much. I get more information out of qualitative assessments with employees, even with employees. I sit down with them and say, hey, tell me what's working, what's not. And you can argue it's anecdotal, it's not systematic. The same argument has been made for qualitative research versus quantitative research for 35 plus years, really, right? So sitting down with somebody and deeply understanding why some things are working, some things are not working, actually gives me a lot of intelligence, both from a customer and employee perspective, really, right? And because we can make decisions fast, right? So the next part is don't go into too much analysis paralysis after that. If there's an obvious error, right? I'll tell you an example. We made an error this year. So we have a big team in India, and India, the way it works is every year, everybody gets an increment, what's called an increment. Okay. It's just there. It's not like the States over here. Like it's not default that you get more money every year. But it's actually pretty default in India. And so we were like, and we had a pretty bad year last year, straight up, right? So we grew by 3%. So we had a shitty year. So I was like, what do? We can't just default increment is not going to work. And we didn't address the issue. Okay, so usually it goes out in like November, December, I guess, and January, so we had to wait till the end of the year to figure out what the final kind of economic output is, and then we have to make a decision in Q1. We ended up making that decision in Q1 that we'll still give an increment, but it's not going to be great. It's going to be somewhat tempered, obviously, because the business we didn't grow. But the mistake I made is I never communicated that clearly. Like that, it's not that we're not going to give an increment. We're just not going to. We need more time. Simple, right? And I did not communicate that at all. And I didn't even know that I did not communicate, obviously, right? So I was, oh, cool, we'll figure it out next quarter.
I know.
Obviously,
I
I don't
find
give
as
it.
a leader, whenever I don't tell the story, someone makes one up, and it
Correct.
is way worse than
And,
what
and
the
then
story I was.
when
gonna
I was in
tell.
India in like towards in March or April, everybody was like, it's a shit show. And the shit show was I just didn't tell everybody that this is what's happening. And I, quite frankly, I found out that with just a one-on-one conversation with somebody, and they told me like, hey, Viv, you need to send an email to everybody. Everybody's waiting over here about what's going on. I'm like, oh, that's the problem? Shit.
Uh-huh.
I should have said, and then I opened up my phone and sent out an email to everybody in the next, hour. So I think this being connected to customers and being connected to even employees, as much as we run a survey platform, I can tell you like there are other ways of being connected to employees and customers outside the context of sending out a survey.
Like
right?
maybe we could go somewhere and like pet a longhorn. Is
Uh,
that another?
yeah,
way
you can
we could
pet-
do
you can
that?
pet
We
a
could do that
longhorn, you can-
together.
You can pet a rickshaw, whatever you want to do. So-
all kinds of things. Okay, so Sean, you hear that mistake. That's some vulnerability of like this is where we fail to listen here or just keep that communication going. You've seen a lot of other mistakes out in the industry. I mean, you've had this guy, you've told me that actually, I think it was in the book where I read it, he actually chased you out of the store with a wrench. Like, I mean, there was potential bodily harm in this story, and then you've converted it to a raving fan and a great customer. So tell me a little bit about some of what you've seen of some mistakes like this, these moments where there's potential learning to bring CX and EX back together.
Yeah. So the story about the guy in the wrench was, it was the era of going analog to digital. Is anyone old enough to know that one? Okay, all right, good.
No,
It's good.
I'm
Some
not.
in the room, some in the room, and fantastic time and an era that we could do very well. And throughout that era, I was going into big printers who had big printing presses, $6 million machines, and I got this $200,000 digital copier saying, you need to buy one of these. The old tell me, sell me sales guy, you know, that guy that pushes a product down someone's throat. And I walked in and he wasn't very happy. And so he picked up a wrench and chased me down the street from his warehouse. And lucky I was training for a triathlon at the time and I could run quicker than he was. So I got away. About a year later, he ran into me at a trade show and he came up to me and said, you're the guy I chased out with a wrench. Talk to me about your machines. Right? And so people aren't always ready. The story behind that is not everyone's in the same position as you. So don't assume what you've got is the best thing. Understand the customer more. Right? Get to know them and get to build empathy. Just going back one step is there's a very, in organizations, there's a very big connection, if we can make it work, and we can, between leaders, customers, and employees. It's a triangle. And when leaders listen to employees and they listen to customers, they become empowered. They become empowered to make the decisions that are right for the business. When leaders make decisions without that knowledge, how can they be making the right decision? Right? It's a gut feel. So that's really the emphasis behind it, is to connect those dots together. And we say that should be just normal in any company, but it's not. The problem is we're doing all the hard things. We're doing the things that are complicated projects, implementing AI and struggling with it and stuff. But we're not doing the simple things that we can do day in and day out. And what we do is bring that back to basics, right? Bring that back to the forefront of what it is. But I want to say the biggest learning I've had, and we've now used our assessment with over 1,000 organizations. And until meeting Vivek and stuff, we weren't automated. So it was really through consulting, right? So long process, worked with massive companies like Deutsche Telekom. But the biggest learning, if someone said to me, what's the number one outcome that you get out of doing assessment, is that most companies are not on the same page around who the customer is. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Right? Like I just had a meeting a week before I left Sydney, and in the room, a bunch of leaders telling me the customer's the partner, and then another bunch are telling me it's the end user, right? And I said, how can you move this business forward if we don't have a strategy and a vision around who the customer is? How do you staff?
Well, even Johannes is saying that, you know, they were so out of touch with the customer. They were creating, albeit maybe amazing things, but who was interested. Like, if you're not straight about who that customer is first, what good is this going to do you? So let's talk a little bit about that leadership when they start getting measurements. So you talk about, even Johannes, you mentioned other KPIs. You already had other KPIs, and then you added these things to it. So now with this framework and getting the tools, being able to automate it, you've got actual numbers. Can put some meat on that bone. What are the numbers? What is it you're measuring? Give us the real, like, think about a report. What were you looking at? What was the conversation you were having with the leaders about this?
That's you. Go ahead.
You can do it,
You're
Jan.
the client, you answer it. Go ahead.
I wanted to give you a chance to make
No,
it look
go
better.
ahead. You answer.
So the good thing is the MRI, the 8 behavioral disciplines that Sean mentioned, those are it's a survey that you do internally with your employees. It takes 20 to 25 minutes to do, and you are asked 5 questions per category plus an open question with 3 text entries. And when you read through those questions, you directly get a feel these questions actually make sense. So if you think of a customer, we had with the leadership team, I had discussions. Someone would bring up, we have what customers are we talking about? We have our internal customers as well. We need to serve our internal customers. And then someone said, well, I don't really believe in this concept of having internal customers. We need to think about our actually external customers. They are paying for the services that we develop. We can serve our internal customers as good and well as we want, and we can be happy about it. Employee engagement, we can be all very happy at our workspace. But if we don't create value for customers that really buy the product or buy the service, then what are we doing? And this, you have customer insight, foresight, you have competitor insight, foresight, peripheral vision. It makes you look into, do we actually observe what is happening around our industry? Environmental changes, political changes, regulatory changes. And so as I was explaining this to the leadership team, and when you are benchmarked against the more than 1,000 companies that have performed this assessment, you get a relative score between 1 and 99%. 50% per category, you are average, you're above average, below. And so it's a relative number that you get. And if you are we did this trial with our 10 managers. We had a few categories slightly above 50%. We had 3-4 categories around 40%. It gives you already an indication where you seem to have some strength and where you seem to have some weaknesses. And then you can directly act on those categories. You get a report, you get a summarized. AI is nowadays making everything very easy. You get a summary, a SWOT analysis of the results. So it's easy to understand. And the results were not surprising. Some were, some others weren't. But it's very, very actionable.
So, Sean, you mentioned that you had this this CEO from Brazil on the phone, and he might have taken a piece out of you. So, was it that it revealed a blind spot? And tell me about some of the reaction when these numbers come across.
So, if I say to you, you got 32 out of 100, how do you feel?
Not great.
Seriously, how do you feel? Right? But do you think an insurance company is as good as Amazon? So that's my answer to him. I said, "Are you like Amazon? Are you a company that can just turn on a dime and fix a customer's problem?" He said, "No." I said, "Lastly, did I answer the survey? Did I answer the assessment? Or did your staff do it?" And he said, "My staff." That's how they see it. What we're getting is their raw feedback, right? It's not about the score. I want to say this. If your score's 32, congratulations. If it's 25, congratulations. If it's 98, congratulations. It's what you do with it. I get on a set of scales at the gym and I'm 100 kilos or pounds. I don't know what that is, 220. Okay, whatever it is, right? My maths, I still didn't need ChatGPT for that one. Okay, kids today need ChatGPT. But I get on the set of scales. What's your first question you're going to ask when you're on the set of scales? What do I need to do in order to move the dial? Right? It's not about the weight, is it? It's about the improvement. So what it does with Jonas and with Rosen and again with Vivek is it sets a guideline in place where to go from. How do we make a movement in the right direction? How do we look at the things that are important? But bigger than all that, it creates a conversation that we haven't had before. It's creating this conversation in the business. And one of the things I said, a lady at Deutsche Telekom, Beatrix Capitani, who we worked with for over 6 months during COVID. So I was doing training courses from 12 midnight to 3 a.m. Fabulous time of the day. I was like jet lagged every day back home when I was running these courses for them. But Beatrix was a CX person in Deutsche of 260,000 employees. She was one of 260,000 people. She ended up getting a voice at the most senior leader in the business because this is cultural. And when he found out it was cultural, he got engaged, right? So a lot of people in CX aren't getting a voice at the boardroom table. They're not getting this escalated voice. You need a reason to get up there.
And you need the data when
You
you're
need
there.
it. You need it. And you need to sit down with the boss and say, look at this, what are we going to do together? And you're the head of the fish.
Right.
We need to make sure that we do what's right. And typically they get engaged. The biggest issue in most companies is the marzipan layer, the middle layer. Nothing goes up, nothing goes down. Who's experienced that? Right? Right? It's a tough one. This allows the bottom to speak to the top.
And
Right.
you can't retain the best and brightest by staying right there in the middle either, or by nothing moving. So,
You can't.
okay, so let's bring this all together as we wrap up. Vivek, last year, probably the most common phrase I heard at this event was "human in the loop." Anybody hear that last year? Anybody who's here? Like that was what we were talking about all the time. So let's kind of put that concept of human in the loop. You created this technology that puts the human in. What do I do with this? To Sean's point, I'm not necessarily interested in what that number is. I'm interested in what I'm supposed to be doing next, right? So in my opinion, I think that a lot of leaders look at something like this and say, okay, we're supposed to be, obsessive about customers, or we're supposed to be obsessive about employees. I don't care which way they go, but they typically find a thing and then they do very bizarre things. Now, pause, hold that for a minute. I am going to actually say, if you do not follow Viv on LinkedIn, you are missing out because it is an absolute masterclass, in my opinion, of I don't know what and purposeful play. And also, I just want to tell you personally, please don't jump any more fences to get into Tiger reservations, please. I need you to do that. But if you follow it all, you know that if an employee somewhere is doing a Tough Mudder, he's out there doing it with them. Is they're running a marathon, he's out there running with her. Somebody's gonna motorcycle across, Vietnam, he's gonna do it with them. I don't know. It's got kind of it's a little bit crazy. Hold that thought. I'm not done with that. It makes me think of Dr. Seuss, that phrase where he says, it's fun to have fun, but you got to know how. And so I kind of put this back to you. When someone gets the data, when they see this blind spot, when they think we've got to move the needle, we've got to go something, we've got to do the next thing. What would you say from what you have seen you've seen this with a lot of different companies. How do you strike that right balance between method and madness and say, I want to lead and really provide clarity for people, and I need to be myself, in this and show up. But how do you balance that? Because I think other people from the outside look in at you and then just say, okay, I'm gonna do the crazy stuff he does. That looks like that. That's not the actual work. The actual work is the talking with employees, the being with employees. So tell me how you balance that method to your madness.
Yeah, I think for me at least, it's I believe in kinetic energy rather than potential energy. Everybody talks about potential and kinetic, right?
That does
Potential.
explain a lot.
Because you got to do things, right? Same thing, right? So even internally and externally, if you just talk about things and not do anything, then we all get frustrated. I get frustrated, and I get a lot of joy out of doing things both ways, right? With what I'm doing personally, So to me, and I think I go back to the Amazon thing, bias for action. So I think Bezos called it bias for action, and both from a customer perspective and the employee perspective, bias for action. Can we execute? Can we get something done today? And if we cannot get something done very quickly, then we know we're going to get busy anyway in 2 months, right? Or in 2 weeks, but for the most part. So, so I try to kind of like think about what can be done really quickly. Even if it's really, really hard, then at least can I take step one towards that direction, right? So not everything can be done in 1 month, but did I take the first step in that direction? And I hope my people around me and everybody else has that bias for action, kinetic energy, however you want to describe that thing, because that moves the needle. And I think going back from the EX CX perspective, both employees and customers recognize that. They recognize the bias for action. They recognize like, well, okay, everything's not great, but there is movement. There is change. There's something that's happening in the right direction. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but at least there's something happening in that direction. So my recommendation always, even when we do surveys internally, is like we got to do something right after that, right? However small it is, we got to make a change. If we don't make any changes, then we look like fucking idiots. Simple, right? So so that's kind of the bottom line, at least for me, is the kinetic energy around bias for
and
action.
people learn from that. They learn behavior. Oh, okay, we're going to do this, but Viv's not going to do anything about it. They learn that
The opposite also. Yeah,
right?
the opposite also is kind of like, okay, we can talk, but nothing really happens.
Right.
Which is, it's a learned behavior. It's not like
Right.
it's not default behavior. It's learned behavior. So you can change that narrative by saying, even quite frankly, even doing something really small. It doesn't. Everybody wants to like, hey, we want to do something massive and meaningful. Then you have analysis paralysis about it's massive and meaningful. Obviously, it's a big problem. Then therefore, we got to think about this a little bit more. We got to do 2 more meetings about this, right?
Oh God.
And then it becomes 2 weeks, and then we all forget about it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's at least my opinion.
Yeah. What do you have to add to that, Sean?
I think out of the assessment, when organizations do it, you get these verbatim comments. And through those sentiments and those verbatim comments, you pick up on typical things. We're doing too much. This is not adding value. There's a lot of rich data that comes into those verbatim comments that allows you to act on what's important to the employees, right? You don't have to do a lot. And I get this from leaders. Oh, it's going to be another project. Oh, we're going to have to do all these workshops. Oh, we're going to have to do all these. No, you're not. You're probably going to discard things you're doing that aren't adding value. You're probably going to get rid of some tasks that you're doing because it's going to come out that it's not adding value, right? Inside there, you'll find one, and I said to Johannes, pick one thing. And I was saying to Joanna, his partner here, the one thing is, what about you introduce that at the beginning of every meeting, you speak about customers for 5 minutes, another Jeff Bezos. 5 minutes. Does anyone do that? At the beginning of every meeting, speak about customers for a customer story for 5 minutes. Who does it? No one. Can I tell you, go and try it. It's life-changing because the attitude in the room goes north, not south. How many people work in the room? We didn't make our budget. Numbers are down. P&L's terrible. How's your attitude now? Terrible. So if you implement one thing like that, because people have spoken, you've won. There's no loss. So there's simple ways to do things. And just finishing on Vivek, if you can't do it in 90 days, don't do it.
Wow.
Right? If you can't do it, can't be implemented in 90 days, as in a change, then Vivek is absolutely right. It's too big to create momentum. Don't do it. It's got to be quick. It's got to be easy. I think Brad said a huddle. Can you implement a huddle into your business every week next week?
Yeah.
You can. You can put it in. Do it.
In that last session that we were in, there were mentions like, people say, oh, I'm going to improve my health. Okay, I'm going to buy an infrared, light, scanner, and then I'm going to, get an ice bath. It's like, okay, that's like the last 10%. What about the eat right, get up and walk? And like, sometimes we just overlook the most basic thing, like that's 90% of the thing is if you gave people a survey, God damn it, look at it, do something with it right now. So it is that small little thing that's there. Okay, I'm going to, as we close, I'm going to let each one of them give a little bit of their thoughts, just kind of a finality of like, how are you seeing making that connection through EX, CX? If everybody left here, we talked about these small little things. what is one thing they can take away from today and say, this is how I either want to think about something differently, the challenge of how to think about it differently, how to make that connection differently, or something to do? Viv, I'll start off with you because I know you're going to have something to do.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick story. So we as a company meet up every week. And the first time, this has been happening for many years, but the first time somebody told me that, look, we were running a remote company. Everybody was everywhere in different markets. We have teams in India, teams here. So like, oh, you should meet up. The whole company should meet up, at some cadence. So I was like, oh yeah, we kind of do a quarterly meeting. And they were like, no, you got to do it every week. I was like, no, it's not possible. Like every week, the whole company meeting up, and what are we going to talk about? And they're like, dude, what'd you guys do last week? That's it. You can talk about that. So the point I'm trying to make is that then I instituted that. The first thing I thought that it just simply physically couldn't be done, but obviously it can be done. So if you want to do something, it can be done. So I'd say like the entire company, no matter how, and it was actually from Microsoft, right? The Microsoft team, I was a part of a Microsoft accelerator program, and they said like, dude, the Windows division, 3,000 people met every week, so you can do your shit. I'm like, okay, good point. Actually, that made perfect sense to me. But then because we instituted that weekly meeting, now we've brought customers into that meeting. So to your point, right, and that was absolutely loved by entire company. Like the first 10 minutes, we just have a customer come in and talk about whatever they want to talk about. Doesn't even matter, really, right? So now the whole company hears from one customer about how Question Pro has been helping them or not. And and it's fine. The one thing that I would suggest is like, all company meeting with some customer related content in there, right? And it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of customer related content. I think changes the perspective around customer centricity. So like, okay, look, 10 minutes of a customer coming and talking to your entire company.
Done. I'll do it. Johannes.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is a customer-centric culture is measurable, something that is pretty, you said it, fluffy, seen in many cases, but it is actually measurable. And it gives you means to act on. The hard work starts then, yet you have to act on it. And we heard it several times. If no one is acting on feedback, customer feedback, we did the same. We brought customers in, talking to departments that are not really engaged with customers, but tell them, hey, your report was on time, everything, operations, we could save this amount of money. Hey, this report was 2 days late. We had to have all these people standing by. It cost us X amount of money. And they were like, oh shit, actually, it's very impactful.
They saw the impact. Yeah.
Yes. So a customer-centric culture is measurable. And this is, I think, a new thing. You have a tangible plan. You can develop a tangible plan and see improvements.
Love it. Sean, take us home.
3 words.
I mean, you could take me home. I would like to go to Australia.
There you go. I'm not sure my wife would like that one, but
I'm pretty
maybe,
cool.
you never know.
She'd probably like
the way
me.
things are these days. Look, we've come up with a saying in the organisation, being human first, right? Put ourselves first. We're the driver. Everything else is in the passenger seat. If we put in that perspective, we'll thrive in the future. So I think it's the most important thing for us as leaders or people in businesses, connect the dots between leadership, employees, and customers. The closer you get to them, the better your business will be. Stop putting hindrances in the way of having that human connection. Every person that uses the MRI platform speaks to me. Every single person. And our user growing and growing. I connect with them. Why? I want to know them. Tell me about you, right? And then someone might support me, but that's okay. But I come back in later. How you going? This connection makes them feel real, right? The problem is we're doing things in our businesses today that disregard the customer, that separate the customer from our businesses, right? So if I say be human first, consider that every single time and you'll win.
Well, I will say the book's really great. It's free to you. Both of our books are gone from back there. So if either one of your, yeah, I don't know what happened. Yeah. Now, if just my mom would read it, we could have success. But if anybody didn't get a book that would like one, mine's on collaboration. Obviously, Sean's is on what we talked about here in the MRI, and really making that doc, bringing it all closer and closer together in every moment that you possibly can. So just hit one of us up. We'll be sure to get you a book. But thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. So if you want a copy of the book, just get me on LinkedIn or send me an email at info@marketculture.com, and I can give you a download link with a coupon code. Right. So, and if you want to pay, that's okay. That's okay. Right. Right. It's all right. I'll donate $5 of it to charity. There you go.